This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. President Trump's tariff threats are back. He says he's going to slap 25% tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, particularly on Mexico and Canada. The U.S. imports more steel from those two countries than anywhere else. And when it comes to aluminum, the U.S. imports about half of all the aluminum it uses, of which Canada is number 1 and Mexico is number 3, behind the United Arab Emirates. Though Trump did not say when the tariffs will go into effect, they would immediately raise prices across the industry, and that would have a significant impact on automakers and suppliers. But let's see how this plays out. Trump imposed the same 25% tariffs in his first term, but then he got rid of them as part of the negotiations for the USMCA free trade deal. Now let's move over to China, where we could be seeing signs of a major shakeout of the auto industry. China has too many car companies making too many cars with too many brands and too many models. This is a key reason why a price war broke out and why automakers are leaning so heavily on exports. The domestic market simply can't absorb all that production, and even more worrying is that sales trends suggest that the Chinese market is no longer growing. Now, two state-owned automakers, Dongfeng and Chang'an, have announced that they are restructuring and are exploring mergers with other state-owned automakers. Since these statements came out at the same time, there's speculation that they're going to merge with each other. And since the central Chinese government owns both companies, it would undoubtedly be the force pushing for the merger. This could be a sign that the big shakeout in the Chinese industry that everyone's been expecting for years is starting to happen. European automakers have been begging for relief over massive CO2 fines that they face this year, and it looks like they could get some help thanks to some tricky regulatory massaging. Rather than cut back on CO2 standards, the EU is proposing a change in the way that automakers can bank and borrow emission credits. It would give them more flexibility to try and avoid fines this year. But it also kicks the ramp up down the road. Automakers would have to reduce emissions even more in future years to make up for their shortfall now. And with EV demand slowing in Europe, that would be difficult to do. It seems very likely that the EU will have to come up with yet another solution sometime next year. Electric semi-truck startup Nikola is in trouble. Last month, we reported that the company is exploring a number of possibilities to raise cash, including selling part or all of the company, and it's also considering partnerships. But it doesn't look like Nikola is having much luck, because Bloomberg reports that the company is now working with a law firm and financial advisors to potentially file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. But the company hasn't made a final decision yet. Nikola needs to find a solution fast, though, because last October, it revealed it only has enough funds to operate through the first quarter of this year.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teetering Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.
After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, most Western automakers left the market, and Chinese car companies quickly filled the void. There are now 60 Chinese brands selling vehicles in Russia, and they account for nearly half of all car sales in the country. But a Russian newspaper reports that owners of Chinese cars aren't happy with their vehicles. 70% have issues with their CVT transmissions. Owners also have complaints about the engines, faulty warranties, and difficulty getting spare parts. Taxi drivers say they don't last as long as well. They say that the service life for Chinese vehicles is only about 93,200 miles or 150,000 kilometers, compared to up to 186,000 miles or 300,000 kilometers for Western brands. Russian car buyers are also unhappy with relatively high prices for Chinese vehicles, which average around $22,000. And the cost of maintaining a Chinese car after 5 years of operation is more than the cost of a new vehicle. Automakers in China are racing to integrate DeepSeek AI into their vehicles. As we reported last week, Geely and Dongfeng were the first car companies to announce they'll adopt the generative AI program for their vehicles. And since then, Chang'an, Leapmotor, IM Motors, Baojun, GAC, and Great Wall have all announced they'll do the same. The technology will be used to improve the voice assistant in vehicles to have a more natural conversation, amongst other upgrades. DeepSeek was only introduced a few weeks ago, but it's gained a lot of attention because it's cheaper to operate than ChatGPT and it runs on lower tech chips. The CEO of NIO says that the Chinese automaker is close to making a profit with its battery swapping business. While he didn't provide any details or reveal when that would happen, there were reports last week that NIO performed a record number of swaps in a single day. That total was about 136,700, which means that each of NIO's roughly 3,100 swapping stations changed out 44 battery packs. The automaker has really seen good growth with its battery swapping business, especially over the last year and a half. In that time, it's added well over 1,000 swapping stations. It has at least 5 new automakers as partners, and NIO's newest brand, Unveil, is about to get access to its swapping network as well. If swapping catches on in a big way, it sure would eliminate all those complaints about the time it takes to charge an EV. Flexus, the commercial vehicle joint venture between Renault and Volvo, revealed the names of the EV vans it just showed off at the end of January. One will be the all-electric version of the Renault Traffic, a van that sold over 2.5 million copies since its release in the 1980s. The others are called the Goélette and Estafette, which fans of the Renault brand might recognize as previous models that first debuted in the 1950s. You might also remember the Estafette concept that Renault debuted in September of last year. All 3 are built on a software-defined vehicle architecture called Flex eVan that was developed by Renault's EV division Ampere. It says the platform is capable of charging to 80% in less than 20 minutes and offers up to 450 kilometers or about 280 miles of range on the WLTP test cycle. The vans will be produced at a Renault factory in France and are scheduled to hit the market sometime next year. And in other commercial van news, Ford's commercial division Ford Pro is helping out delivery drivers in Europe. Electric and ICE versions of the Transit and Transit Custom will come out with a new feature this summer called Delivery Assist that automatically turns off the engine if it's ICE, closes the windows, locks the doors, and switches on the hazard lights anytime the driver stops and gets out. After the delivery is complete and the driver unlocks the door and steps on the brake pedal, the engine starts back up and the windows go back to their previous position. Ford Pro says the tech reduces the number of tasks, which should speed up deliveries, and it also provides more peace of mind to fleet operators. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. And by Teetering Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility.
Developing today's vehicles, issues can happen in an instant. What good is knowing your problems without the data to solve them? Meet wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure off-the-shelf solution, empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Nearby Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Knowing that a little rain won't slow down your day, that's what really matters. Bridgestone Turanza Quiet Track tires, confident control in wet conditions.